Hello and welcome to the latest issue of Let's Fix It in Pod, our little podcast in the VFX universe. In this issue, we want to put a big focus on FMX. First, we'll take you through our personal highlights of the program, and there are a few. And then we'll bring in Mario Müller as a special guest. Let's go.
So, Christoph, I assume you already have everything planned out, and you're not going to have the problem that you're going to be at two places at the same time, which regularly happens with that program.
Well, you know the ritual. You plan out every day. You schedule where to be at Bertha Benz Saal and when to be in the König Karl Halle and all that. And then you line up and you find out that one is totally overcrowded, and then you take a queue, and in that queue you meet somebody and he gives you a tip for a really good talk. So yeah, we'll see how this plan works out in reality. But yes, I already did survey the program a little bit, and I found quite a few nuggets that I really want to take a look at.
The program is always very good. This will be my 15th FMX, so I think these days I count as furniture.
So you'll get like a golden ribbon to wear your badge.
No, I get the priority button at the escalator.
There's a priority button. Well, it's only my 5th FMX, so I don't even know about the button.
When I was that young and naive.
Don't you judge. My very first FMX, I actually did a demo on a Quantel system, and you know how long ago that must have been.
I usually do a full calendar with all the slots I want to see, and I usually get to about half of them at best, because besides the talks, you always meet someone, and then yes, there's this, there's that, and since I'm only there for once every year, I always get confused which is which room, and then this and there, and it's confusing. But sometimes you sit in the talk. Finally, I got to the talk I wanted to see. Oh no, that's tomorrow. What I'm listening to now, and then you stumble into something that's not something you expected, but usually it's interesting.
So you've been there 15 times and you still don't know the layout of the place. Well, that's just great.
Let's put it this way. If I were a lab rat, I'd be the rat that sits in the middle of the labyrinth and just howls for cheese. One of the things I most enjoy about FMX is standing in front of the doors in the smokers area. I call it my office, and just seeing who comes in, who goes out, and talking to all of these people, which is usually the best fun.
And he's not kidding about that. It's a dead giveaway. If you walk into FMX and the Haus der Wirtschaft, it's pretty easy to spot Bela right in that place. And yes, it's right next to the ashtray.
One talk I'm gonna definitely go is for the Mufasa, the Lion King talk by Audrey Ferrara. Of the late MPC on Wednesday at 5 in the afternoon, because I did an interview with her for digital production. And if you're one of the couple of thousand people who read it, and you have further questions, there you can ask them. She'll be in attendance, and usually with FMX, the people you want to meet and the people giving the talks are available afterwards. And if you have questions you don't want to ask in front of all the audience, you can catch them afterwards, or just enjoy sitting in the dark and asking the question silently and hope nobody recognizes you if it's a very, very stupid question. If this sounds like a particular example, well, yeah, it's learned by experience.
There is this saying that there are no stupid questions and just stupid answers, but you're trying very hard to prove otherwise.
And I proved it many years ago.
Want to elaborate? This sounds interesting. Let's take a little side tangent here.
So this tangent will be approaching infinity, but nah. And it was, at the time, it was my 3rd FMX or 4th. So many, many moons ago.
Talking about many, many moons ago, This brings me to a talk that I definitely want to visit, and that is the history on the development of Nuke. As you know, I've taken myself a little bit of a look down memory lane with my articles on Cyborg and on Henry, which are on digitalproduction.com. And I'm really interested in that. And honestly, just for the screenshots alone, it's worth going there. So take a look what Nuke did look like 20 years ago, and it's hardly recognizable. This should be a great talk. Jonathan Ekstedt will be there. And he was one of the original developers at Digital Domain way back when. And he's going to have a talk together with Ian Fales from Befores and Afters. And Ian is always a great host. He's always really good at asking the right questions. So this should be a really interesting talk. Really looking forward to that one.
And that's at Berta Bensal on Wednesday at 11:15.
Honestly, queue up early because I reckon this will be really founded. The experience from the last couple of FMXs showed that all these then and now talks, the ones looking back at the history of VFX, are really, really popular.
My next recommendation, again at Wednesday, Berta Bensal, 3:45 in the afternoon. It's going to be Florian Gellinger from RiseFX giving a talk called Watch Your Language. I'm just going to read you one line of it, of the announcement, and then you'll see why I want to be there. Let's face it, we're horrible at marketing what we do, and the way we talk about our work is a masterclass in self-evaluation. Florian always gives great talks, and it should be A, funny, and B, thought-provoking without going into details that will be irrelevant the next time the software is released.
This should definitely be interesting, especially in these challenging times. And I think it's great that a founder and leader of one of the bigger VFX studios is opting to give a talk on such a, let's say, delicate topic. This is Let's Fix It in Pod, and so far we had an AI moniker in each and every episode, and I'm not gonna make this an exception. So I picked Fear and Loathing in the Age of AI, Leadership Lessons for a Changing Workplace. So this is a talk focusing on the volatility of the changes we are currently experiencing or think to be experiencing. And it wants to point out both the challenges but also the opportunities. And I think that with these kinds of talks, it's always good, even if you might not necessarily agree with the host's opinions or with the opinions presented, the resulting discussion often gives new food for thought, and also it might be a good starting point for having a discussion after the talk with other attendees. So for that alone, I'll definitely check this one out, which is on Friday, so on the last day of FMX at 10 o'clock in Raum Reutling.
My recommendation for Thursday afternoon is Next-Gen Procedural City Design, which is going to be the City Engine talk by the Esri guys, and Urban by Matthias Böhler, which is always A, a fun talk, and B, City Engine, the tool they're going to talk about, is one of the tools that if I ever have the time, this is going to be the first one I actually want to learn, because it's amazing and far too big for my little head to understand, but I want to understand it.
So my next pick would be the art of anamorphic lenses in Witcher 4 cinematic reveal trailer. Hang on a minute. Anamorphic lenses in a game trailer. This sounds interesting, to say the least. Because usually, for me as a comp artist, lens discussion mostly goes into, well, how can we get a proper match move done? How do we rebuild the lens characteristics? But taking the perfect lens of something like Unreal and building a custom camera setup to emulate anamorphic lenses in a game engine, that's the whole process backwards. And I think for myself, from attending this talk, I might find out quite a lot about how lenses actually work, what these guys were out for to look for in detail, and how to replicate this. So I think even if you are not into game development, if you haven't got anything to do with Unreal, this could be really, really interesting just to get this train of thought on how they rebuild their custom lens rig.
Another talk, I'd seen it a couple of years ago, and this is one of the things that every animator has to do at one point in their life. This is like, you have to do that, and that's the course Acting for Animators by Ed Hooks. He's been doing that at FMX for a couple of years, and everybody who visited the course says you definitely should visit, because it's he's going to teach you how to act out all kinds of things you need as an animator to understand motion, to understand the angles of the viewing, all of this. He's done it many times. He's quite good at it by now. He also wrote a book about that, and it's going to be a 2-day course, 2 half days spent very well. You should be there early because it's usually quite full, and it's something that if you want to learn about animation, if you are a student, if you are a beginner in animation, this will really give you a leg up. And if you're a seasoned animator, this will teach you quite a few new things.
I'm going to go out on a limb here because the talk I'm going to recommend has a very small description, which is just saying more information coming soon. So, Christoph, why are you recommending this talk? Well, that is because of the host, and that is Paul Debevec. And he's, I think he personally needs no introduction. He is this year's program head of FMX. He's also been known for such movies as Matrix, Spider-Man 2, Benjamin Button, Gravity, Blade Runner 2049, and so much more. And the only thing, as long as his credit list, is his awards list. So he's pioneered the Light Stage 3 system. So whatever he chooses to talk about lighting and rendering, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and usually the people coming out of Paul's talk says, this is quite a bit farther than I thought it was going to be, because he's usually the cutting edge of research in these areas. For my final recommendation is something you probably heard about in this podcast. The Hochschule Hamm-Lippstadt has built a virtual production stage with many, many, many things in there. And Stefan Alberts, who joined us at the podcast, is going to show you around in it and give a talk in it. The time is quite late. It's Friday at 6, but usually Stefan gives good talks, so it's probably very well worth the wait.
And if you can't make it that late, at one point in the future, there probably will be an article on digitalproduction.com.
Yeah, he promised us, and you all heard it.
We're going to hold him to that promise. We will make sure.
So that were our recommendations. There is obviously many, many other things you can watch. There's the workshops by the companies, for example, Maxon, Side Effects, Pixar. All of those have rooms where they have workshops and recruiting presentations and project presentations, which are usually great fun. The halls aren't, the rooms are a bit smaller, but if you have an interest in any of the tools, just go there, have a look. You can talk to the people there, and it's a good way to get a first step in the door in any software package. Or if you look at the FMX program, there's always the speakers linked. And if you think this looks amazing, meet the person who made it, tell them that it looked amazing, and quite possibly you can learn a bit how they did it. So that's always good to see.
Another thing I would like to point out, of course, is the recruitment area. And I think especially in these, well, let's say challenging times in our industry, that might be worth a visit. So to quote Bela here, take your business cards, because it's always important to have business cards, and get into the recruitment area and get informed who's on the lookout. You might find yourself, and you gig, a new job, a new booking, whatever.
So the recruitment area, I don't think that's going to be that full this year because, let's be honest, it's been a horrible year for VFX. But the people will be there by the companies, and so have your showreel on your phone or on a tablet. Go there, have a coffee, see who's running around. And for many, many years, this has been the spot for freelancers in Germany. And of course, front of the building where you meet the guys after the official presentations.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation as well. I mean, it's nice to talk about the program and you can put together your best, most efficient schedule. But equally as important is the social aspect. I mean, it's so nice to have everybody together in one place. So weather permitting, the place in front of the Haus der Wirtschaft should be packed. There will be some places where we can get some grub or some drinks. So let's hang out, talk, connect, and meet some nice people.
I want to mention two other things that are always there. One is the trade floor, where a couple of companies are showing their newest stuff. And you might think, oh, well, trade fair, yeah, we know that the big companies. Unlike most trade fairs, FMX always makes a point of getting in some smaller developers who are usually introducing something quite interesting. And I remember at my first FMX, I met a couple of French guys who introduced their first version of their new plugin there called Golem, which is by now acquired by Autodesk and is part of Maya these days. There's always some kind of more industry stuff, which is also interesting to look at because it's a completely different view on our jobs. So that's always worth wandering through and seeing what's out there in new tools. And and usually in the evenings there are parties and get-togethers and things like that. I've never found an official schedule for when or what or anything. You usually just hear about it. And that's always nice to wind down a bit and to meet new people at the bar. So keep your ears peeled for invitations, for tips, where are parties and something like that. And that's always something to look forward to, having a couple of beers and meeting the people you haven't met in the hallways. And one additional thing is always something that I always do is walk through the education area, where a couple of great universities and schools present their stuff. And it's always a bit depressing when you see how good students these days are in comparison to what other people are doing there.
I just love your sales pitch. Go there and you'll be so depressed because those guys are so good.
Isn't that what we want from the next generation?
Yeah, but couldn't you just give it a little bit more of a nicer spin, honestly? I mean, go there and you'll be depressed.
I thought that was the nicer spin.
Oh, let's talk about your bedside manners one day.
Oh, there's a reason I'm not a doctor.
So, before we lead over to our guest, Bela, what if once such a busy day at the conference is over, where do you usually hang out in Stuttgart to wind down? Are there other places where people might expect to run into you?
Yeah, there's one bar / restaurant / pub, whatever you want to call it, which has been the meeting point for many years. It's called Schlesinger. It's behind the Haus der Wirtschaft, just once over the big street. And they have many, many types of beer. And most evenings I'm either there for the whole evening or for some time. And that's a great meeting place because it's right next to the location. There's proper food there and proper drinks. And it's a good place to also run into people. And if you're tired and overwhelmed after a long day at the trade fair, it's not that far to walk.
Just to take responsibility for us being a service podcast, we'll put a link to Schlesingers in the show notes.
If you haven't been to FMX, there's a recreational area directly in front of the building that's only been up for a couple of years, 2 or 3, where there's a couple of food trucks and things like that, and some fresh air, and you meet the people there. If you want something a bit quieter and have a sit down, when you leave the building, go to your right and then immediately to the right again, and it's just about 100 meters, and then there's a high street, let's call it that, with a bakery and some restaurants which are usually a bit quieter, and you can have a sit down there and a big cup of coffee.
With that, should we bring in our guest?
Yeah.
Bela, would you be so kind to introduce him?
So our guest today is Mario Müller, the project manager at the FMX. So Mario has been doing this for about as long as we've been visiting it. He's been the program consultant since March 2011 and has been the program manager since 2017. Or project manager. Before that, he's been an author, he's been a filmmaker, he's been a producer at Müller-Meyer-Schmidt Company for film and media, and he's also been at Filmakademie Baden-Württemberg, so he's been around the block and at FMX for many, many years. So, welcome, Mario. Mario, how did you get to be in your position at the FMX? How did that come about?
That's a good question, and I hope I'll try to make it quick. I've been with FMX for 15 years now, and I started to be a filmmaker myself, but as we all know, it's very hard to get into that business. But I have been a visual effects geek all my life, and not surprisingly, that happened when I was 15 years old, and Star Wars happened in cinemas in 1978 in Germany, and I've been a fan ever since. So for me, it was a given that this would be something that I'd be very interested in. So when I applied to basically help out with anything that they would have at FMX 15 years ago, that's how I got started as well, never an apprentice, as somebody who would just help out with the recruiting space at FMX. And well, I've been here for a while, so whenever the opportunity came up to like change positions, first into programming, and now as the project manager, the person who leads the conference, I was happy to take the plunge.
As a project manager, give us a rough idea what your tasks are and when do you start planning for an FMX?
Right. I'll answer the latter part first. We start officially organizing FMX around October of the year before. So it's something that goes on for like 6, 7, 8 months, very densely. But frankly, in Germany we say nach der FMX ist vor der FMX. So the moment one FMX closes down, we take 2 deep breaths and then we go into feedback loops. And then from that right way back into conceptualizing and planning the next one. My position as the project manager means that I lead a team, a fairly small team, we're 10 people altogether, who organize the conference. And since I have very good staff and people who work with me and for me, I just coordinate and try to bring everything together and keep an overall umbrella over everything, like how everything comes together. And I moderate the team basically. And there was a time where I had much more time to be involved in the actual program making. But obviously, since as things get more complicated and more complex, I have less time to do that. But again, I have a brilliant program manager, and she has she's very aware of what needs to be done and where to put it and how to structure it. So again, I mostly give my opinion, and sometimes sometimes people listen to what I say, and sometimes they feel like they have a better opinion, and they might. To me, it's always an open table. It's always a discussion between different opinions and how to then get the best result out of it.
So when we look back, you said that you collect feedback, you change stuff. What is the thing that you think that changed the most since you first went to FMX?
In terms of organizing it, or in terms of the event itself?
In terms of the event itself, because I remember the attendance were very, very different. So it was 90% male, 95% male at the time, and very, very much only nerds. There were no, or very, very few artist people.
Good point. Yeah, well, that was something that when I became the program manager of FMX, that may have been 7 or 8 years ago, there was a clear consensus between myself and the conference chair at the time uh, to take FMX out of the purely technological corner and to open it up into where it is much more about the full spectrum of film production, not just the post production process, visual effects or animation, but like if you have an artist at FMX and he or she does pixel work, they do animation. We felt like they should really know about storytelling, about structure, about cinematography, about the handoffs that they also have to deal with all the time. They get material, they work on it, and then they push it out the other side. But what is the other side, to the left and to the right? How much will it help them in their own work, even if it's fairly specific and less artistic? Uh, uh, to know about all these things, about story structure, and that's something that we started to provide more 7 or 8 years ago, uh, to the point where now it is a very integral part of FMX, because we feel that is one of the things that may actually differentiate us from other conferences, because it's not just about the, excuse me, pixel pushing, but it's also about the artistic aspect of it, the storytelling, the conceptual side of it. Uh, and we enjoy that ourselves, and we believe that it actually gives our audience more to take with them when they go back home.
In terms of the audience, do you see a change there?
We do, but obviously that's the slow process. Thanks again to how things are changing in more general terms anyway, because as I was just saying about the artistic processes that we try to bring to the stage at FMX, we felt like working conditions, socioeconomic conditions, diversity, equity, inclusion, uh, those kinds of topics we felt and we still feel should be discussed at FMX. So it's not just that overall more women, more people, I don't know, people of color, people from underrepresented areas of the society um, are working in the industry. They also come to FMX more, just as more women uh, get education in visual effects and animation than even 5 years ago. And we think that's a very good thing. And obviously, the challenge to get to 50-50 as soon as possible, that is still going on. And we see it in the numbers of speakers and curators we have at FMX. We see it in the number of attendees that we have at FMX. We're pretty constant at about 30%. And that we feel that's really a very good thing. And it used to be more like 18 to 20%. So things have changed, and we do our best to attract more women onto the stage and as people coming as visitors to the conference. And I feel like we're fairly successful in that.
I've been at a different conference a couple of months ago, and I realized that this was the old school sausage party industry. It was for women, and everybody was gray. So that's always nice to see at FMX a bit more color.
The surprise to me is that even after having done that for 5 years, very clearly with the vision to change that and to give it more visibility uh, on stage, uh, how hard it still is, because whenever we reach out to companies or to people working on projects and tell them, well, can we have a woman? Can we have somebody who's not a, a white man? And they say you have no idea how hard it is. So even if they wanted to, sometimes there is none. Or obviously you want the VFX supervisor, and you don't want like a second tier, I don't know, whatever, a compositor, and just because she is a woman. And that's always a bit of a challenge. You can overcompensate in those kinds of things, because obviously you want to give people the best information and behind the scenes you can get.
When we talk about the program, how do you decide what are the main topics of the year? I mean, there's always one general overall topic, which is usually fairly loosely defined, because how else would you do it? But how do you decide which projects to ask for talks, for presentations, for?
The question may be short, the answer may not be. We try to bring most of the same tracks, as we call them, to FMX year after year. Obviously, it would be VFX, animation, virtual production, tech talks. But as you were mentioning, first of all, we do have a yearly theme, and the yearly theme changes year after year, because we feel like there's always something fresh going on or something very important going on, and that would normally not be represented at FMX or just a bit. But there's always something that needs to be discussed or to be brought. This year, it's the state of the industry. It's we call it rhythm of change. We try to spin it in a bit of a, I don't want to say positive light, but like if there is a crisis in film production, post production, how do we deal with that? And that's pretty much what we're bringing to FMX this year. And obviously, it's much more a big question rather than we have very clear answers to that question. But we feel like since everybody's talking about it anyways, since it's affecting a lot of people in the industry right now at this very moment, we'd be happy to be the platform where those questions are being discussed. And in terms of the projects, obviously there's always, what's coming up, so you put that on a list. You have your list of usual suspects of the better known, or the more companies who work in visual effects and animation, and we have brilliant contacts into those companies. So we reach out to them, and then we always have like one or two favorite projects that we rather have them talk about. But at the end of the day, when it's a larger or a better known company, we have them decide what they'd rather talk about. Let's say if it were WetFX, is it going to be Batman, or is it going to be Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? And well, and it's a discussion. Sometimes they feel like one would be more important than the other, but we feel the other one would be cooler than the first one. So it's that kind of thing. And in terms of the context we have, and we do have brilliant contacts, that's fairly easy, because we start those discussions as early as September of the past year. When it comes to disruptive things or disruptive projects, they're just there. Suddenly people start talking about them. Like, I don't know, Arcane 3 or 4 years ago. Who knew what that was going to be? But there it was. Like Flow this year. Suddenly everybody talks about those shows. And obviously you want to have those at FMX, and you want them represented by the right people with the right angle. But then you have to find the way into the company, find the right representative. So it's pretty much a bit different with every single thing you want to bring to the conference.
When we look at the tracks, some of them are based on more tech focused, others are project focused. When we talk about the hype cycle that's always coming through, what do you see for the next FMX as the big hype? Because all right, this time it's AI, of course, and I remember when HDR was something very, very, very new, and HFR, which is completely out of focus now. It was out of focus back then, but that was a feature, not a bug. So what do you think will be the next big topics?
You're saying in a year or 5?
Let's say 5 years.
I'm going to say something, and you're not going to like the answer. I have no idea.
That's a very honest one.
70% of hype topics, they come, they get chewed up, and then they almost disappear. And the other third, they become part of actual production. They just flow into what's happening, pretty much like it was with HDR or uh, or with 3D in a way. If anybody still talks about it, certainly what happened with virtual production and what's eventually going to happen with AI in 2 years or 3 years time. And what the next thing is, I have no idea. I think, from my point of view, it's going to be real time or near real time, but that is just a guess. And obviously, I could have said the same thing 15 years ago, but I think we're by now we may actually almost be there. I see how AI will uh, dissolve into the whole thing as well. And at a certain point, the artists and certainly the audience will not care whether it's 3D based real time or whether it's been rendered for 60 hours or whether it's a 2D real time um, I don't know, makeup, let's call it that, face replacement, because it's just going to be there.
Real time, so the guys from Epic Games will be there at FMX, I assume.
Not explicitly, but always in a way, of course, because as soon as you talk about virtual production, it will very likely include Unreal, uh, yeah. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. But not where they're officially on stage. Again, I feel like those times are over. You remember like 7 or 8 years ago when we had the Senua demo live on stage at FMX, and it was like, how can they even do that in real time and then even live on stage? And I mean, people just get used to that because eventually it ends up on your device. You can do something similar now. Yeah, yeah. And the other thing, because you were asking what's going to be happening in 5 years, and all of that is already being worked with at this point. I think something that is either Gaussian splatting or something that will evolve out of a Gaussian splatting, because if that's near photoreal, and if you can pick any camera angle you could have a dream of, and it's just there. I mean, that is really mind blowing.
It's an excellent point that you make, that these hype trains are actually much more iterative than one might think. So yes, we've seen something like virtual production on an FMX like 5 or 10 years ago, and now we see how it's actually used in production, and then we get the next hype train pushing through, and eventually one element will fall off of that train and stick. And so, yeah, one thing I wanted to ask is going back to the tracks. I remember last year I saw this great piece by a Swiss animator doing claymation, and he had a fantastic talk. So I was interested because I really like this little niche talks, not just the big studio productions. They've got their own unique qualities, but I really like these smaller ones. Um, so how do you pick like these smaller independent productions? How do you get in contact with those kind of people?
Contacting is the hard thing. And the other one is just, I'm not even going to call it research. I'm just a very curious person by design. And again, I come from a geek background. It's just a topic, and animation and visual effect is the topic that has interested me most of my life. So I read up on it all the time. I would think that I probably put close to 10 hours of literal reading through trade press and magazines just to do that. And whenever I come across something, either in writing or on the internet, or because somebody sends me a newsletter, I just flag it. And then again, starting in September of the year, I go through the list, and it's just a barrage of several hundred links and websites, and then we just try to uh, structure it or organize it or pool it, and some things work out, some do not. At the end of the day, it's you want to get a mix of the blockbusters, the independent, the handmade, the disruptive, the uh, the international, the European, the German, the regional, all of that, and all of those different variables. You try to get a good mix so everybody gets out something out of it again. Because as you all know, uh, FMX is not just a fairly large show. It's a very wide show. So there's so many different angles and topics. But because it's structured so precisely, uh, you can still do it. Because if it weren't structured that way, people would just get lost. They wouldn't find anything, certainly not what they're looking for. But since we have this thing where it's not just the what we call the schedule view, but the other one, the overview uh, on the website, where it's structured by topic, uh, I guess by like doing 3 or 4 clicks, you will find what you're looking for. If you're a compositor, if you're an animator, if you're an art director, a concept artist, a cinematographer, you name it. I'm sure you can get there with just a few clicks.
One thing that's always when we discussed FMX, and we did that extensively, is that it's quite a big thing these days, connected to all kinds of other things. There's the Animation Production Day, there's the Trick Film Festival.
Good question. We cooperate rather closely because we've known them for years and years and years. They're friends, they're colleagues. We found that while each one of those 3 events has our very clear core audience. And while ours is more the behind the scenes and the making of part, obviously the Trick Film Festival is more about, well, let's just watch those projects screen. The Animation Production Days are more about cooperation and co-financing. But obviously, there is a sort of an umbrella over it, and the umbrella would be animation and animated media. And that's why actually starting last year, we started using a communication umbrella. We call it the Stuttgart Animated Week. And it's not like there's a lot going on crossover all the time, but some of our speakers will speak about how they did this and that, and then the same day or the next day, that project, that film will actually be shown on the screen at the Trek Film Festival, that sort of thing. And we like the exchange. We think for some of our audience, uh, it's actually an expansion of what's going on. Because again, FMX is a fairly expensive ticket to buy because it's a proper professional conference. Obviously, you get some bang out of your buck for that. And comparatively, the ITFS, the Clickdown Festival, is what you add another, I don't know, 50 euros, and you do that as well. Obviously, that's gonna make your week even more complicated in what am I gonna go and see. But you can get both sides of it. You can get this is how we did it, and this is what it is. And we like that a lot.
Well, one addition that COVID brought around, of course, was the FMX Online. How, first of all, thanks for being back for 4 days. I think that's a huge improvement. But how does that affect scheduling, and what is the feedback you get on having this FMX on demand part in addition to the actual conference?
Interesting question. Obviously, it was an absolute necessity coming out of COVID 2020. We couldn't do anything. We actually had to cancel FMX. 2021 was a full online edition, and starting in 2022, we added the hybrid part of it, where we had something online and or on demand. And even at the time, I felt that doing live streaming on a specific day is a cool thing, but I wasn't sure. I'm still not convinced that it's the right way to go, because you try to simulate something on site, and you do in terms of this comes now, this comes in an hour, this comes in another virtual room like 2 hours down the road. But what you don't get is you don't get the exchange that you have on site and the spontaneous chats. You run into somebody and you can't simulate that. So I believe what we do, what in terms of it still being hybrid, is we have the show. Whoever can come and wants to come, it joins us. And whatever you can't watch at the time in Stuttgart, because there's just too much going on, or because you can't come at all, then you just watch it in your home, and you have a month's time to watch all of it. It's hundreds and hundreds of hours of material, and so to us, it's the best of both worlds. And also, it seems to be, well, everybody says it's the future. Obviously, people would still rather go and join the show while it's happening, because you're there and you commit fully. You know how it is. You go to the cinema, you watch something, you sit down for 2 hours, and you just let it. Uh, you just take it in. If you do it at home, you press pause, you go get a beer, you take a leak. It's not the same thing. So in that respect, I guess uh, FMX on-site or any event on-site is the full Monty, and everything else is not quite the same. But at least you can do that. And now that it's not necessarily, you, we wouldn't have to do it anymore because we're back to 4 days on site. We still feel that it's a good extra to have, because you don't lose as much as you would if it were just on site, and it adds another 10% of the audience who's not coming at all. And since the additional cost to make it happen is comparatively small, uh, we're happy to do it and continuing to do that.
Also, as a visitor, I have to say the video on demand stuff is great because there's always two talks you both want to see both at the same time.
Yeah, and it gives, as somebody like myself, who prepares for FMX for, like, let's say 8 or 9 months, and then when it's happening, I see nothing at all. My total minutes in seeing anything on the stage at FMX last year was, I don't know, 45 minutes or something.
And which one did you pick?
I forgot, really, because there's so much. Because I pop in and out. I have this thing when I go into a presentation. I I put my cellular, my mobile phone, I put it on my lap, and as soon as it starts ringing, or when I hear it buzzing because it's on mute, then I just go back up, and sometimes it's 45 seconds, and sometimes it's 10 minutes. You never know.
Well, it's like everybody who hosted a big party at their home probably can relate. As a host, you're the one who is the least drunk.
I remember at Animago, it was the same thing. I seen one talk at Animago, and that's it. At least you get your 10,000 step goal a day easily.
Very, very easy. No, it's shocking. I mean, you both know the Haus der Wirtschaft where FMX takes place, and I mean it's a large building, but still it's just one building. But at the end of the day, I will have walked anywhere between 7 and 12 kilometers inside that building.
So let's say a little fairy appears and grants you to pick from this year's schedule one talk that you can enjoy in absolute silence. Your mobile won't ring, nobody will disturb you. Which one will you pick?
Ooh. I'll pick three, and I'll make it very quick. I'll pick either the keynote by Paul Debevec, or I'll pick the session on Arcane Season 2, or I'll pick, and just because I just love the show, I'll pick the one on Severance. And maybe 4, because that excites me as well. We'll have one on Andor Season 2, and that, to me, that's one of the very exciting things that sometimes works out in a year, and in other years it just doesn't. We have 2 shows at FMX that will literally have been on air or in cinemas for just a few days.
I remember last year I made a conscious effort to finish Fallout before the talk at FMX because I didn't want to get spoiled. So I binged the whole show on the S-Bahn from my place to the Haus der Wirtschaft just to not get spoiled by the talk, and it just worked out in the brink of time, really. So. You mentioned Paul Debevec, who's this year's program chair. Would you care to illustrate a little bit how he helps in putting together this year's program?
A really good question, because obviously, as I've been hinting at before, we have a ton of brilliant contacts into the industry anyway. But that really relates to the usual tracks we have. But since we pick uh, uh, a one-off for the yearly theme, we need somebody to help us out with that. And in that respect, we will pick somebody who's either very deeply entrenched into that topic, or somebody who's exceedingly well connected into the industry. And in that respect, Paul Debevec would be a good pick any year, obviously. And we're not just happy, we're really proud that he said yes, that he would do that. Not just because he's just one of the brilliant minds of film technology and film, VFX work, uh, but also because he's just a terribly, terribly nice guy and a very generous person. So to have him help us out with that was really a gift. Um, and how does he help out? Well, we have several Zoom chats with the person, with Paul, and then we try to give him an idea what we mean by the yearly theme. And as you were pointing out, Bela, earlier, we tend to go with more soft topics for the last so many years, because I feel like the true technological innovations, I don't know, they don't seem to be happening all that much, because we've broken through so many glass ceilings in the last 3 years. Photorealism, real time photorealism, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So obviously you want to pick something else that still excites or inspires people, and um, and then he will come up with ideas, with names, with contacts, with projects. He will reach out to people, and then every so many weeks, we'll just speak again, and we'll, I don't know, we'll make it happen. We'll put it in proper places, or we'll turn uh, three topics that seem to be disparate. Suddenly they seem to be clicking, and you say, "Listen, come on, this would be something. This is about stop motion, or it's about something else." Yeah, yeah. And in that respect, he was able to help us a lot. And also, as you know, he's a brilliant speaker. So to have him give the keynote at FMX is absolutely a gift.
When FMX is done, how do you measure if it has been a good one?
You can always go by the numbers. We've sold this many tickets. We've had this many seats taken in the rooms. Uh, all of that is very easy uh, to find out. But to us, it's really the vibe in the building, and the way people feel while they're at the event, and also the feedback we get. Because there were times when we asked people to give us feedback. Now they just send it to us, and it's not just the audience; it's also the people who are the professionals who are there, and certainly the speakers who come explicitly to be at FMX. And we just get very thorough and mostly very, very positive feedback, which for us is just a good thing, because obviously we want to make the best show we can. Uh, but then to hear it from the people who are basically doing us and the audience a favor by coming and spilling the beans and giving us information and inspiration, uh, and if they're happy with how it went, how they enjoyed it, how they reacted on the feedback from the audience, and how they enjoyed bumping into people who are not working professionals but students, curious people. Uh, that to me is what keeps me going, really. Yeah.
Mario, you mentioned students, and they always have been a big part of FMX. Would you elaborate a little bit on your connection with the Filmakademie in Ludwigsburg and also the role of the recruitment hub inside of FMX?
As you may know, and some of your audience in the podcast may not know, that FMX is actually organized by Filmakademie Baden-Württemberg, which is in Ludwigsburg, right outside of Stuttgart, and it's been organized by the Film Academy for 30 years now. So the very first FMX, which was still very much a student thing, where students would show off their own work towards an audience which at the time hardly existed at all. It became what it is today, Europe's largest show of its kind, very well known around the world. A lot of the alumni of the Animations at Film Academy eventually end up being speakers on the stage at FMX. 5 years later, 10 years later, sometimes they become world famous people. And for the students of Animationsinstitut at Filmakademie, FMX is actually part of their colloquium. They're supposed to go. It's mandatory that they go to FMX, because it's just part of what the teaching at Animationsinstitut. In that respect, it's very positive and very important. Also, the the director of the Animationsinstitut at Filmakademie, who at the time is Jan Pinkava, he is also the conference chair of FMX. So obviously, the crossover and the inspiration and the cooperation is very close and very strong. You were mentioning the recruiting hub. Well, recruitment at FMX always has been a very strong uh, I wouldn't say it's focus, but it's something that a lot of people actually uh, uh, take part in a lot, not just the students and the alumni who just come out of film and media schools, but also the companies, the German, the European, and the international companies who will actually set up a booth there because they really do want to and they believe they will find extraordinary people to work in their companies and on their next projects. So that's been going on a lot. It's been growing very much so. We're not quite sure what's going to happen this year with the industry being more in a waiting mood and seeing what's going to happen, and where the workload apparently obviously is less than it used to be, but it's still going to be there. We know there's a lot of interest from the applicant side, from the student side. How much we can still grow it to usual numbers in terms of the companies actually recruiting at FMX, we'll have to see. But obviously, FMX, as much as anybody else within the industry, is obviously affected by what's happening right now.
And have you had any feedback from the trade show part of it, from the trade floor?
Oh, yeah, no, it seems like that's going just as well as it always does. People want to sell their hardware, the software, and the services. So obviously they're going to be there, and likely they may have more money to spend to go there and then do their marketing and their communications. And in terms of Europe, obviously FMX is the place to go. There may be other places around the world where they can do it just as much and even uh, at a larger scale. But in Europe, you got to go to FMX.
So this year's topic, Rhythm of Change, with the upheaval in the industry and stuff coming around the corner with AI, how did you come to that, and how has that changed from the first idea to what we're going to see in a couple of weeks in Stuttgart?
We knew we had to discuss what's going on in the industry and how to hopefully navigate it in a more constructive way instead of just being scared and just stopping in your tracks and not doing anything, hoping that it's going to go away all by itself. Uh, what what we hadn't expected was how big a part of that AI would become. Obviously, AI is the thing that everybody talks about anyway, even when they're having a beer with their friends in their spare time. But it it became pretty clear that the disruption with and by AI is the part of that thing that's going on in the industry. It's not just about change, it's about how it makes people nervous, and when people get nervous they tend to not make any decisions or any planning. So having said that, um, we we probably have anywhere between 12 and 15 individual sessions on AI at FMX. Nothing that we had planned explicitly, but which now makes all the sense in the world because, again, as there was mentioned before, you suddenly realize there's a certain amount of talks that you would like to have, and you can you can bring them together into a track, a more specific topic, and then you put that into the show. And I think as long as we do it generically as we did this year, where you don't squeeze it in just because it's the next big hype thing. Uh, I'm sure people should be interested in having watching it, and obviously we have quite a few panel discussions on the topic, but with very different people taking part in those discussions. So even what is being discussed in detail and the the things that may come out of that discussion for an audience to take away will certainly be rather different from one to the other.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Mario. This was really, really insightful. And I really look forward that we three meet each other in 5 weeks' time in Stuttgart.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. I look forward to meeting in person, having a chat. And thank you for having me, Bela and Christoph, on your podcast. It's always fascinating to talk to people who watch the show from the other side, but still know what's going on and appreciate what we bring to the community. And yeah, I can't wait for it to happen because it's really coming together well at this point. What I can say is there's still a few surprises in the program that nobody knows about, that we're going to reveal soon. So keep on looking at the website and at the program. And if you haven't, not the two of you, but the people who are listening on to this podcast, please go out and get your tickets, because you're going to have a blast at FMX this year, I'm sure.
So, thanks Mario for all the intel, and we're going to see you there. So now you'd usually expect some news, but since we're recording this way in advance, even before NAB, we can play some prophecies, but usually at NAB there's going to be big news, so we can't record them this time. Watch out at digitalproduction.com. We're going to cover all the amazing things and some of the not so amazing things. So no news, but as the final chapter of this episode, Christoph has something to say.
Okay, there is one bit of news, and I'm happy to announce that I'm shifting careers a little bit. So I'm gonna leave the world of compositing, and instead I'm gonna head over to Boris Effects and start there as a product specialist. So this will be really exciting, but it also means a little bit of adjustment for this podcast. So what Bela and I decided to do is, with FMX coming up, we'll put the show on a little hiatus, just to figure out how to sort things, how this job change might influence scheduling or the way we present this podcast. But let's fix it in Pod. We'll be back in the summer.
Yes, and at FMX we're going to do some interviews, some maybe live streams, some who knows, and show will go on, but it's going to change a bit.
Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time.
See you. Bye.
Bye.